And briefly, we're going to cover each one of those steps. The first step is how to develop the purpose or mission statement. The second step is how do you get information in the environmental analysis stage. How do you gather the information you need to make a sensible, good set of business decisions? The third step is how do you analyze your strengths and weaknesses? How do you dig in and really understand your own strengths and weaknesses so that you know what targets to set? The fourth step, we come back and we talk about assumptions. And we'll specifically give you examples. Every plan must be based on a minimum of 2 or 3 good assumptions. Then we'll come back in step 5 and say, now, specific long-term targets. How do we determine what those 5-year targets should be? Do those 5-year targets, if met, help you achieve the purpose, vision, and mission of your organization? Then, how do you organize strategies for each objective? So many times in business plans, I see targets which in most cases are only financial, but there's never a strategy or an operational plan on how to achieve those specific objectives. So we're going to talk about strategy development. How do you get good ideas out of your organizational members on how to meet the objectives? Then in step 7, we're going to come back and say, now, how do you get the plan into operation? How do you get the plan executed? Step 8 then is what about evaluation and control? Is the plan on target? How do you monitor the plan? How do you create a performance appraisal system that is rewarding, energizing, and exciting for your people? Then the 9th step talks about how do you drop down from the subset of objectives and create individual plans, create functional plans. How does the marketing plan, the production plan, the financial plan, the human resource plan, how do these functional plans support the overall strategic plan? Now, let's just take each of these topics one at a time. The very first is your purpose and mission statement. In the purpose statement, what you're trying to do is get into writing the vision, the mission of your business. What business do you want to be in? Are you a national, international, regional, or local organization? Are you profit or non-profit? In every purpose statement, I like to see the word service. Whatever business, organization, or church we're in, we're serving some need in the marketplace. After all, if you're not meeting a need in the marketplace, or if you're not serving, then there's probably not a good reason for your organization to be in existence. So your purpose statement wants to identify that broad brush, that broad business. What business are we trying to be in? Now, the way I usually accomplish this is I recommend to organizations to do one of 3 things. Either go on a 2 or 3 day planning retreat where you can take your top people away from your plant, your organization, or your business or church, and get them off-site so they can sit down and go through each of these processes. I've done that with many companies, many organizations over the last 20 years. Now, second thing you can do is have regular, periodic breakfast meetings. A third way is what I call a brown bag luncheon planning meeting. We did this with one of the major oil companies. Every 2 weeks, we got together for about 2 hours over a brown bag lunch and went through each step of the planning process. But as you can see, it takes the involvement of your managers. It takes study. The material has to be read, and you take things one step at a time. So let me describe to you now how to develop a good purpose statement. Of course, first of all, you read the material in the book so you can see examples of other purpose statements. Then you have each person on your retreat, in your luncheon or breakfast meeting, write out on a separate sheet of paper the vision they have for the company. What business do they think they're in? Each person is individually writing out on paper, here's what I, Henry Migliore, think we're trying to do in this company. Now, the second step then, once they've written that out, and that's been your homework assignment, then you break the group into smaller little subcommittees. So, for example, with a retreat, in a retreat setting, I had a major U.S. corporation, had about 20 of their top executives. I broke them up into 4 groups. And I said, okay, now spend about an hour and a half discussing your purpose and mission statement. At each table, have a scribe. You're going to report back. Then what I do is move from table to table, listen in on the discussion, do some monitoring, asking questions, but generally stay out of the discussion. I usually recommend that the chief executive or the highest ranking officer there also rotate among the tables with me. Not inhibiting conversation, but just being there as a resource person. Now notice a couple of subtle things that have happened. Number one, you've made each person commit individually and alone on paper, here's what I think we're trying to do. It's subtle, but that's important. So many times we'll follow an informal group leader and it robs everybody the opportunity to really think. You'll more likely defend your position if you've actually written it down on paper. Another subtle thing is taking place. As you're having a discussion, everybody is getting the opportunity to interact. You're creating some teamwork and excitement. I've been at this for 20 years, and by mid-morning of one of these kinds of retreats, you're going to have everybody so excited because now they're interacting, they're exchanging ideas with one another, they're agreeing and disagreeing, and they're coming up with a product. Okay, let's say that takes 2 hours, or let's say that took 1 full luncheon session, or perhaps 2. Then you come back and let a spokesman out of each group stand up, give their report. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Then someone leads an open discussion, and there's agreement and disagreement. It's very healthy to have a fair amount of disagreement and discussion. Now, the next step then, and this is another key critical step, is now you collect all the sheets of paper, the individual sheets that each person filled out, the report that came out of each team, and you put that in a folder that you call your purpose folder. Set that aside. Now, as you go through, and I'll continually come back and refer to this particular procedure, you're actually going to build a folder then on each step of the process. You're going to build a folder on purpose, environmental analysis, strengths, weaknesses, and assumptions. And then later on, I'll come back and show you then how to organize your planning team into such a way that you can dig deeper into each of those topics.